You are watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and let's see the top stories shaping our world. The Russia-US peace deal stalls after talks. Moscow says there is a lot of work to be done. European Union leaders approve plan to end Russian gas imports by 2027. And U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth asserts he did not see survivors following the second strike on alleged drug vault. Russian President Vladimir Putin met U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff for 5 hours of peace talks, but made little progress. The Kremlin called the meeting constructive, yet said major parts of the plan are still unacceptable. Earlier, Putin rejected proposals from Kiev and Europe, warning that if Europe wants a war, Russia is ready.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met with U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner in Moscow on Tuesday, in high-level talks aimed at advancing peace negotiations over the Ukraine conflict. President Trump said his envoys are in Russia to try to settle the conflict, calling the war a mess that would not have happened under his administration.
As you know, we have a problem with a war that our people are trying to settle now with Russia and Ukraine. We are not involved in the war monetarily anymore. Biden gave away $350 billion like it was candy. That's a massive amount of money. And much of it in cash, a lot of it in equipment. I don't give away anything. We sell the equipment to NATO. The European nations pay us for the equipment, 100% price. And then they bring it to Ukraine or whatever they do with it. But we're trying to get that settled. I've settled 8 wars. This would be the 9th, and our people are over in Russia right now to see if we can get it settled. Not an easy situation, let me tell you. What a mess. It's a war that never would have happened if I were president.
Speaking to the media in Moscow, President Putin addressed Russia's stance on potential conflicts with Europe, stressing the country's readiness if tensions escalate.
We are not planning to fight Europe. I have said this 100 times. But if Europe suddenly decides to wage war against us and starts it, we are ready right now. There can be no doubt about that. The question is, if Europe starts a war with us, I believe that very quickly, this is not Ukraine. With Ukraine, we act in a surgical, careful way, you understand, right? It is not war in the full, modern sense of the word. If Europe chooses to start a war, the situation can very quickly reach a point where there will be no one left for us to negotiate with.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he is awaiting the results of the US-Russia discussions and will respond accordingly.
That we are waiting for the results in America-Russia negotiations, today's results, and I will react according to the results.
The Moscow talks mark the highest-level US-Russia engagement yet in efforts to find a resolution to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
The Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk has been a major target for Russia since mid-2024 due to its strategic role as a supply hub for Kiev. For the first time, Moscow claims it has full control of the city. However, Kiev denies all the speculation and says fighting is still ongoing. Here is more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin repeated on Tuesday that Pokrovsk, a frontline city in Ukraine's Donetsk region, is fully under Russian control. He reiterated that military commanders reported the city's complete capture over the weekend. Putin called Pokrovsk a key position that allows Russian forces to advance in all directions. When referring to the city, Russian leader used the Soviet-era name of Krasnoarmeysk.
Apparently, the question of who controls Pokrovsk keeps coming up because some doubts remain. If anyone still has doubts, as we have already said, and as I have also suggested, we are ready to allow international and even Ukrainian media to visit the city of Krasnoarmeysk and see for themselves what is happening there and who really controls the settlement.
However, Ukraine firmly rejects the claim. Kiev says Russia holds the southern part of Pokrovsk, while Ukrainian troops still control the north. A Ukrainian security analyst, Serhiy Kuzan, said most of the city remains a grey zone where neither side has full logistical control.
For a city to be considered captured, you must have control over its territory. Control is determined by specific military criteria: the ability to deploy units, establish logistics, maintain communication between units and headquarters. None of these signs, which are obvious to every soldier, are present in Pokrovsk.
People in Kiev express skepticism over Moscow's claims of a complete seizure of the city. Most believe the reports are part of the Kremlin's propaganda.
Frankly, I don't believe it. I think reports are being spread ahead of the peace talks, so that's why the information is not true.
Every metre of our land matters to us. We shouldn't get caught up in reports. Whether it's Pokrovsk or Bakhmut, both are important. We have to fight for every metre.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces say heavy fighting continues. The 7th Rapid Response Corps reported conducting assaults in the southern districts where Russian troops are concentrated. Satellite images and footage show widespread destruction in the once busy city, underscoring the scale of the months-long battle.
European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced a new era of full energy independence from Russia. The European Council and Parliament agreed to phase out Russian gas imports by 2027 to end the reliance on Russian energy. The agreement will include a legally binding stepwise prohibition on liquefied natural gas and pipeline gas imports from Russia, with a full ban from the end of 2026 and autumn 2027, respectively.
This is the dawn of a new era, the era of Europe's full energy independence from Russia. Many believe this would be impossible. Well, the figures speak for themselves, and let me give you some. Today, Russian gas imports, so LNG and pipeline, are down from 45% at the beginning of the war to 13%. Coal imports are down from 51% at the beginning of the war to now 0%. And crude oil imports are down from 26% to 2% today. I always knew that we could deliver with unity, with resolve, and by building on the extraordinary work of the past 3 years.
NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte on Wednesday said it was good that peace talks to end the war in Ukraine were ongoing, but that it was necessary to make sure Ukraine was in the strongest possible position. Rutte's comments came as NATO foreign ministers gathered for a meeting at the alliance's headquarters in Brussels to discuss alliance priorities and security issues, notably the war in Ukraine.
Ukraine. How do we make sure that Ukraine stays as strong as possible? The peace talks are ongoing. That's good, but at the same time we have to make sure that whilst they take place, and we are not sure when they will end, that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position to keep the fight going, to fight back against the Russians, but also in the strongest possible position when peace talks really get to a point where they sit at the table. It's important that the peace process is there. Hopefully it will lead to results. And if it takes too long or it is not leading to results, the best way to put pressure on the Russians is by doing two things. One is making sure that the Russians understand that the weapon flow into Ukraine will keep on going. That's exactly what's happening today, thanks to the US, thanks to the Europeans. US sending its crucial gear to Ukraine, paid for by Canada and European allies, but also Europe and Canada doing a lot bilaterally. And secondly, making sure that the economic sanctions bite, that they are effective. That's also exactly what is happening.
In Brussels, former EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini and 2 others have been formally accused of procurement fraud, corruption, conflict of interest and violation of professional secrecy following the detention on Tuesday and subsequent release. Mogherini, along with the 2 other senior officials, remains under investigation.
Belgian police have taken former EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini into custody as part of a fraud investigation. The probe also involves senior EU diplomat Stefano Sannino and a manager at the College of Europe in Bruges. All three had their diplomatic immunity lifted.
I can confirm that the police was today at the AS buildings, and this is part of the ongoing investigation of the activities that took place before in the previous mandate. And there is nothing more we can provide you with, because there is now an ongoing investigation happening.
The investigation centres on allegations of favouritism in awarding a training programme for future EU diplomats, run by the European External Action Service and assigned to the College of Europe, an elite institution that has trained Europe's civil service since 1949. Police carried out searches at the EEAS offices in Brussels and at the College of Europe in Bruges. Mogherini led the EU's diplomatic service from 2014 to 2019 and is currently rector of the College of Europe. Public Prosecutor's Office says the investigation is ongoing and all suspects are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Both the EEAS and the College of Europe have pledged full cooperation with authorities and reaffirm their commitment to transparency and integrity.
The United Nations is facing a deepening cash crisis. Secretary General Antonio Guterres proposes slashing the 2026 core budget by more than $500 million. It's because some member states haven't paid their dues and owe, in total, the sum of $1.6 billion.
The United Nations is facing a major budget squeeze as Secretary General Antonio Guterres formally proposed cutting the organization's 2026 core budget by $577 million. He's seeking ways to improve efficiency and cut costs as the world body turns 80 this year amid a cash crisis, driven largely by US arrears. The United States is the top contributor and is responsible for 22% of the core budget. Russia is another country yet to pay their assessed dues. In total, member states owe approximately $1.6 billion.
We have also not received $877 million of 2025 dues, and so thus arrears now stand at $1,586,000 US. I've repeatedly appealed to member states to pay their assessed contributions in full and on time. It is difficult for us to give back money that we have not because we didn't receive it. And so it is very important to find a solution for this question, a temporary solution.
This cash shortfall has forced the UN to underspend in previous years and threatens its ability to fund core operations. The plan would reduce spending to a little more than $3.23 billion, a drop of roughly 15% in real terms, and eliminate more than 18% of current posts across the UN Secretariat. Final approval will require endorsement by the full General Assembly later this month. The outcome will determine the Secretariat's ability to operate in 2026 and test whether member states can provide reliable financing for international governance.
French President Emmanuel Macron landed in Beijing on Wednesday for his fourth state visit to China, as Europe seeks to balance economic and security threats from Beijing with reliance on the world's second-largest economy during a time of global trade turmoil. Macron, who will start his trip with a visit to Beijing's Forbidden City on Wednesday, will meet President Xi Jinping tomorrow in the capital and again on Friday during a trip to Chengdu in the southwestern Sichuan province. His visit comes after a tense trip by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in July, when she said ties between the EU and China were at an inflection point. U.S. actions in the Caribbean are drawing fresh attention after a controversial second strike on a suspected drug boat. The White House and Pentagon are now facing scrutiny over how the mission unfolded. Here is more.
The US Defense Secretary has provided fresh details on the deadly strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean. It's after an incident on the 2nd of September that has raised concern that American forces may have violated the laws of armed conflict. Reports say 2 people survived the initial blast and were clinging to the burning boat. A second strike was then allegedly ordered, killing them. Speaking at a White House cabinet meeting, Pete Hegseth says he didn't personally see survivors after the first strike and describes the events as part of the fog of war in a fast-moving situation.
A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. And it was the right call. We have his back, and the American people are safer because narco-terrorists know you can't bring drugs through the water and eventually on land if necessary to the American people. We will eliminate that threat, and we're proud to do it.
President Donald Trump said the White House was unaware of the follow-on strike at the time.
I didn't, I still haven't gotten a lot of information because I rely on Pete. But to me, it was an attack. It wasn't 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I didn't know anything about people. I wasn't involved in it. I knew they took out a boat. But I would say this, they had a strike. I hear the gentleman that was in charge of that is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary person. I'll let Pete speak about him. But Pete was satisfied.
Trump said any country trafficking illegal drugs into the United States could be attacked.
I want those boats taken out, and if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea. And there's very little coming in by sea. I think we've knocked out over 90% of it. There's very little, and I understand that.
Since early September, more than 80 people have been killed in similar US operations across the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. The administration says the strikes are necessary to protect Americans from illicit drugs. Meanwhile, US Navy ships and military jets were seen in Puerto Rico on Tuesday, underscoring the continued American presence in the region. Joint exercises with Panama also took place, though US officials deny any link to rising tensions with Venezuela.
Australia is days away from enforcing its historic social media ban for teenagers under 16, a move that sparked concern among teenagers, parents and mental health experts. The new rules will require tech companies to shut down underage accounts or face heavy fines. Our report looks at what changes are coming, how platforms will enforce them, and why some young people fear losing vital online support networks. Here is the story.
Social media platforms including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, X, YouTube and Reddit must deactivate all under 16 accounts and stop new sign-ups from the 10th of December or face fines of up to $49.5 million. The ban comes as the Australian government moves to protect the mental well-being of teenagers in the country. Each company is expected to take reasonable steps in its age verification process beyond ID alone. As the social media ban looms, however, young people are worried that being cut off from their online safe spaces will result in more harm than good.
So I feel like it would be fine for some people, but for some people it would worsen their mental health because you're sending the isolated, alone people back. They might not figure out how to get the help they need because sometimes a Google search isn't enough. And you're cutting off the people from others who can potentially help them and get sources to get help.
For me personally, it's slightly problematic because you're basically isolated for about 6 weeks during the school holidays. During the start of it, I think I won't be as dependent on social media as I will be hanging out, as I will be socializing with family. But as it continues on, I will probably feel more attached to social media.
Some sites say that users who are wrongly flagged as underage will be able to appeal, often by ID checks, bank card verification or facial age estimation.
They are mixed in their view and opinion. I think there's definitely can be some benefits of restricting or reducing their reliance on social media for their well-being. We know that social media can be an avenue of harm for young people in terms of things like unrealistic body image, for example, or exposure to bullying or predators online. So there's those influences that will be reduced. On the other side, what we're concerned about is that young people still have mechanisms and avenues for connection and for help seeking.
A High Court challenge is pending and a parliamentary committee has recommended delaying the rollout, but the government says the start date remains unchanged.
Now we'll take a short break. Coming up next, we break down the EU fraud investigation that has led to the arrests of Mogherini and Sannino. See you shortly. Welcome back to A News. Belgium is facing a major scandal after former EU foreign policy chief and current College of Europe rector Federica Mogherini, along with former European External Action Service Secretary General Stefano Sannino, were arrested on suspicion of fraud. Both were later released after questioning as part of a probe into whether a 2021-2022 EU Diplomatic Academy tender was improperly steered toward the College of Europe. To help us understand the implications of these high-level arrests for EU governance and political stability, we're joined by Gregory Mathieu, political analyst, joining us live from Stockholm, Sweden. Mr. Mathieu, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon indeed.
Good afternoon. Gregory, let's start with your initial reaction. How significant are these arrests for the EU?
As you mentioned, the importance is high because of the name of the suspect and because of the name of the institution that is suspected of alleged fraud. The name of the suspect are high-level former EU top officials. Madame Mogherini was chief of EU diplomacy for 5 years, by the way, at the time of the annexion of Crimea. And after that, she became the director of College of Bruges, other known as College of Europe, because there are now 3 members for this college, one in Bruges, Belgium, one in Natolin, Poland, and one in Tirana now, recently. So this the top EU officials are indeed trained. It's a postgraduate school. It was questioned she was chosen function because of the lack of her academic background. She never published any academic paper, she never wrote a book, but she nevertheless was chosen. Why was she chosen? Well, because she has a nice agenda, she has a list of contacts that is very high level, she knows very well the EU institution from the inside, and potentially she has access to privileged information. So the suspects and the name of the institution are indeed very high level. At this stage, it's the Belgian author indeed at the request of the European Prosecutor Office. This is not a Belgian investigation as such. This is a requested investigation by Madame Kodruta Kövesi from Luxembourg, EPO.
So how unusual is it for figures of this seniority to face such charges within EU institutions?
Unfortunately, it's not unusual. I would just remind you, Mr. Reinders, who was Commissioner of Justice in the last Commission, is now investigated in Belgium for money laundering. Allegedly, he cannot know how 1 million euro came on his account in Belgium. It's a lot scandals in the past, and also this is the question of the once you are a top-level EU officer, when your month's over, what do you do next? And this is the questioning of the revolving door. You can find a lot of director generals, former EU commissioner, former EU member of parliament, working in lobby firm, in advocacy firm, in NGOs, and they are chosen because, as I said, they have a network, they have a knowledge of the functioning of the EU, and they potentially can help the client or the NGO to accelerate the process where they can, if you know before someone else that there is a tender, and if you know the content of the tender, you can better prepare yourself to win it. In addition, if you know the Secretary General who is allocating the tender because his or her ex-boss, well, you know that there are some questions that should be answered here.
Mr. Mathieu, what does this case tell us about the effectiveness of the European Public Prosecutor's Office?
Well, Madame Kodruta Kövesi, she is not shy on attacking top-level people. She did that in Romania. At the time, she was the DNA chief there, the anti-corruption chief in Romania. And she has a track record of prosecuting a lot of high-level people, ministers, etc. So she's not shy. At the same time, all these people are not innocent, as you reported mentioned. It needs to be convicted. This is the result of an investigation, if people are convicted. Madame Kövesi is at the end of her mandate. Her institute, EPO, is a newly created institution. She's the first ever Europrosecutor, and she's of course trying to put this institution on the map of the influential and powerful in Brussels.
In your opinion, how might these arrests influence public trust in EU governance?
Well, one of my last interventions on our channel was about corruption in Ukraine. And I remember saying, when you want to give lessons to the world about transparency, about governance, about rule of law, you should be yourself quite clear. This multiplication of scandals is not helping Europe to be credible in the international area. When it touched the EU chief of diplomacy, well, it's all the institution, and notably this one. Yesterday in Moscow, it was a meeting at the Kremlin. I haven't seen anyone from the European Union side table. And this kind of scandal is certainly not helping it to establish a powerful on the international debate.
Mr. Mathieu, finally, what should we watch for next in this rapidly evolving investigation?
I cannot hear you.
What should we look for in this rapidly evolving investigation for the next, as a next step?
Well, there's a process. So Madame Bini, Mr. Sanino, and a third person that has not been named answered questions for 10 hours yesterday at the Belgian police. I estimate that there will be potentially other investigation, other homeworks for the investigators to do. Madame Bini is now free. She, as the prosecutor office said, not representing a threat, and there's no risk of her to fly away. So she is, and she can prepare with a lawyer her defense, as everybody has a right to. But I probably expect this can be a very long investigation. and this can also be all depends of the speed of and the willingness of the prosecution side.
Gregory Metsu, thank you very much for talking to A News. We greatly appreciate your time. Thanks a lot. After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Kazakhstan is moving closer to concluding its investigation into the Azerbaijan Airlines plane crash near Aktau. Officials say the technical part is nearly complete while the criminal investigation continues. Our correspondent now reports from Kazakhstan on the latest developments.
The investigation into the Azerbaijan Airlines plane crash near Aktau is entering its final stage. Kazakh Deputy Prime Minister Kanat Bozumbayev confirmed that the Ministry of Transport has completed the technical part. Only reports from the developers and operators of the aeronautical systems are still pending, and once received, Kazakhstan expects to close its part of the investigation by the end of this year or early next year. Bozumbayev said the investigation is proceeding along two lines. The technical aspect is handled by specialized agencies, while the criminal investigation is under the General Prosecutor's Office, working closely with Russian authorities. He added that progress has been made in this area as well. The aircraft operating the Baku to Grozny route crashed on December 25th last year while attempting an emergency landing near Aktau airport. There were 67 people on board. 38 died and 29 survived. And according to preliminary data, the plane crashed as a result of physical and technical external interference that occurred in Russian airspace over Grozny. On October 9th, 2025, Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly stated that the plane had been within the range of Russian air defense missiles. According to Putin, 2 missiles detonated near the aircraft while intercepting an attack by Ukrainian drones, causing the crash. Russia has expressed readiness to provide additional information to investigators and to pay compensation to those affected. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
The European Union says it's developing a new four-party group with Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey and the EU to improve east-west transport links. EU Commissioner Marta Kos confirmed the talks began in October and are advancing after recent meetings in Luxembourg and Tashkent. She said the EU asked Armenia for its priority projects to shape the plan. Kos added that greater cooperation on transport has become possible thanks to improved relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
We can't do this only by the governments or by the public money. So we have to include the private investors, and they are eager to come. So it is mostly about the diversification on the south flank, meaning, one of the representatives of the European companies told me, just build the infrastructure and then we will do the businesses. We know how to do the businesses, we know how to earn the money, but we need the infrastructure. So this is what we are now offering. So TRIP is one part of this connectivity in the transport, but we have to connect it to the west and to the east. So we are discussing to build a special quadrilateral group, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey and Europe, to discuss how to do this best.
A major development in Europe's energy landscape is unfolding across the Black Sea. The European Commission has moved one of the region's most ambitious energy connectivity initiatives, the Black Sea submarine cable, onto its priority list, marking a significant step toward deeper integration between the EU and its eastern partners. Our Nini Nikolashvili has more.
The European Commission has added the Black Sea interconnection cable to its list of projects of common and mutual interest. A total of 235 cross-border energy projects received the status, making them eligible for Connecting Europe facility funding and faster permitting procedures. The project stems from December 2022 agreement among Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania and Hungary to build a 1,000 megawatts, 1,195-kilometer submarine cable under the Black Sea. The link will transmit green electricity from Azerbaijan and Georgia to Romania and onward to Hungary and other European states. In September 2024, the Romanian operator Transelectrica, Georgia's GSE, Azerbaijan's Azerenergy and Hungary's MVM created a joint company to implement the subsea cable project. The initiative also has broader regional implications. Azerbaijan could gain additional transit opportunities and expand the export potential of its growing renewable sector, while Georgia's role as the cable's transit hub highlights its geographic position in linking regional energy supplies with Europe. A feasibility study by Italy's CESI and inclusion in the European network of transmission system operators development plan confirmed the project's technical and economic viability. If adopted as EU regulation, the designation would unlock grant funding, boost investor confidence and speed up implementation. Overall, the cable would advance Europe's diversification efforts and establish a new clean energy corridor from the South Caucasus to the EU. Nini Nikolashvili, Tbilisi, A-News.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the Islamic Republic has closed its security gaps after Israel and United States attacked Iran this June, adding that Tehran also spotted the security gaps of Israel during a full-fledged war which lasted 12 days.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that Tehran has managed to close its security gaps and upgrade its ballistic missiles in the wake of 12-day U.S.-Israel war last June, and at the same time identified weaknesses of Israel's defensive systems. In an interview with the Omani presenter Musa Al-Far'i, he stressed that Iran has a better defense power than it used to have before the start of war in June, both in terms of the quantity and quality. According to Araghchi, Iran not only recognized its weaknesses and fixed them, but it also identified weaknesses of its enemy, based on which Tehran has revised its security plans. Iran and US were in the middle of mediated nuclear talks when Israel attacked Iran on June 13th. Later, US President Donald Trump joined Israel and ordered airstrikes on Iran's major nuclear sites under UN safeguards on June 22nd. The remarks by Iran's top diplomat were made in the interview with Musa Al-Far'i program last November in Muscat, but were reported recently as Iranian and Israeli military and security officials have increased their aggressive rhetoric about possibility of a second major encounter. Turaj Shiralilu, Tehran, A-News.
A technical meeting on cartography in Baku has taken on broader significance for the Turkic states. Delegations are discussing unified mapping standards, data sharing and regional planning process that Azerbaijan now handed over to Kazakhstan, which is set to host next year's session.
Sometimes a map is nothing more than lines on paper. And sometimes it becomes a strategic document that defines the future of a region. The second meeting of the Turkic States Organization's Cartography Working Group in Baku begins with exactly this question: how will the Turkic world draw its own map with its own hand? Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkey, and the observers Hungary and Northern Cyprus. The cartographers of these countries have come to Baku to find answers to questions that go beyond technical terminology. How will geographic data sharing be unified? What standards will guide regional planning? What will the unified Turkic world map change?
We have prepared a unified map of the Turkic states. We will present it today, and it will be a very interesting map. It represents almost half of the world.
The maps presented at the meeting are not only for planning, but also form part of the security architecture of the member states.
One of the main purposes of cartography is to provide maps that ensure the defence and security of our state. After the 44-day war, the importance of accurate maps increased even further. Modern systems now allow us to produce 3D and topographic maps in digital format.
Although today's topics may look technical, they actually lay out the future governance model of the Turkic world, standardization of hydronyms, updating border maps, mapping natural resources, digital environmental platforms, a unified GIS database.
We want to exchange technologies so that we are united not only by language, but also by borders and a shared history, so that we can move closer together and bring our country's future closer.
As the Baku meeting wraps up, Azerbaijan hands over this mission to Kazakhstan, the next host of the cartography working group.
Firefighters from around the world are turning drills into sport, and speed, teamwork and precision are the rules of the game. Last month, the Global Championship showed the strength of the movement, and this week, Baku welcomes the leading rescue organizations to plan the next wave.
Fire and rescue sport transforms real emergency techniques into high-speed competition, from sprinting with ladders to scaling multi-story towers in seconds. What began as a training method nearly a century ago has grown into a global circuit, drawing teams from across Europe, Asia, the Middle East and Africa. Just weeks ago, the world's top men's and women's teams met in Riyadh for the 2025 World Championship. Over 4 days, they battled through obstacle courses, relays and fire extinguishing challenges.
Here in Baku, fire and rescue chiefs from more than 20 countries have gathered for the 26th International Conference of the Sport Federation of Firefighters and Rescuers. Over the next few days, they'll review the past year, plan next year's World Championship, which will be held right here in Azerbaijan in 2026, and share expertise in firefighting, rescue work, and even nanotechnologies.
Delegates say their goal is to strengthen cooperation, raise training standards and support the sport's long-term ambition of gaining Olympic recognition.
When we speak about fire sport, it has almost 100 years of history. It was developed first in 1937, and now we are 20th century, 21st century, and the results are unbelievable. And I would like to invite all the people in Azerbaijan and also in Baku to come and see the World Championship.
All the elements practiced in the competitions, whether it is combat deployments, a 4x100 relay and so on, or the scaling ladder, are actively used in day-to-day operations, not only in Kazakhstan, but in all countries around the world. More than 20 countries are now taking part in the conference, with 15 men's teams already participating actively.
The conference continues until the 6th of December. Delegates will focus on strengthening international cooperation, improving training and safety standards, and keeping the spirit of competition alive. Sabina Babikirova, A News.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Europe's major move to prioritize the Black Sea submarine cable project and what this shift means for the region's energy future. Stay with us.
If you had to repeat this path, would you do it?
I don't know.
A journey marked not by maps, but by the ones we carry.
Nein. Nein.
This story stretches across continents, empires, and religions. From Germany to Caucasus.
Das ist eine schwere Frage. So heute nicht.
Story of success, friendship, deportations, and disappearances.
Ночью пришли, арестовали моего дядю, и больше о нем мы ничего не знаем.
A community that rose and almost disappeared.
Его расстреляли в 1937 году. Был расстрелян как немецкий шпион.
This is a story of a migration that shouldn't have survived.
Da gibt's eine schöne Geschichte.
Welcome back to A News. Europe is taking a bold step in reshaping its energy future. The European Commission has officially placed the Black Sea submarine cable project on its priority list, a move that could redefine connectivity between the EU and its eastern partners. To help us unpack what this means, we are joined by Vakhtang Maysaya, political analyst from Tbilisi. Mr. Maysaya, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's my great pleasure, and I'd like greet to you and to your Just About supporters.
Thanks. Mr. Maysaya, what does the European Commission's decision to prioritize the Black Sea submarine cable signify for the EU's broader energy strategy?
I guess it's like a more greater achievements from the European Union's perspective. It's just about remains issue that the European Union is interested in just fostering strategic cooperation in the age of the Black Sea regional security fora, not only from geopolitical, but also mainly, first of all, geoeconomic provisions. Mm-hmm. And this about also just increase about connections of the Black Sea with Caspian Sea. So 2C connections or 2C, I would say, incentives, which we can this most important energy security project, mega energy security project. I guess it will be reflecting against European Union just about key long-standing strategic interest toward these nations of the South Caucasus, mainly about Georgia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary, which also mainly Romania and Hungary, where the cable should be just about just being constructed and just fitted down. Second, the project price is about, as I know, 3 billion euros, as I just know by the just several information dates. And I guess it's also just has equal the same just reflections as, for instance, as about China's OBOR, One Belt and One just road pass project. Even United States, like a West and South geoeconomic project. So it means that European Union also downstepped and also fulfilled its own geoeconomic mega project, which we call about this energy cable project, because it's also equal with the price of the same project which I mentioned here. So it also just means that European Union will expand its interest behind all the Black Sea and Caspian Sea basins. It's also should be just maybe just engulfed also Central Asia and even just get to the directions of the Indian Oceans too.
Mr. Maysaya, in your opinion, what are the key technical and logistical challenges involved in laying such a long submarine electricity cable across the Black Sea?
Well, first of all, the European Union has all technological possibilities, because they have also the same Baltic energy cable, which also been one of the biggest achievements of the European Union. Nowadays, it will be just only transmitted to the south directions. Union has all just about technical capabilities, accessibilities, and resilience to also just develop this project. Mostly when about 2 European member countries also just engage in realization of the project. I mean Hungary and Romania. And of course Azerbaijan, with also just biggest energy resources, including also just not only just about renewable, but also non-renewable, because electric energies belong to the non-renewable energy just sources, and Azerbaijan has also plenty redundant resources of these energy ones too, besides the renewable resources one. So it's more just considering to maybe just be thought that Azerbaijan also being oriented towards European Union integration with geoeconomic perspective. I guess it will be a more interesting case. And I guess this project also becomes even worldwide level, which also increased status of the involved actors at international fora, and also just stimulated to develop international energy cooperation at any levels.
Mr. Moisaev, how important is this project in the EU's effort to diversify away from Russian energy sources?
It's most important. One of the key, I will say, because it's I call not just about accidentally I mentioned about mega geoeconomic energy. It can also just about diminish Russians just about dependence, European Union's dependence on Russian energy sources, at least about maybe 30-35%. So if not even more behind. So I guess this is a bit more important, more crazy, because it's also just stipulated, also keeping along with European Union green energy policy, which becomes most important, most vital in fostering energy global policy provisions at any level. So I guess it also promotes European Union's green policy energy development, which also becomes the most strategic mission and goals of European Union leadership.
So what do you think? Are there
about 3-4 years ago?
So are there any major environmental or maritime security concerns associated with installing the cable?
I'll mention that it has like a very low, just about environmental, just about cottages and environmental damages crisis. It's also increased environmental security environment in areas of the Black Sea Basin. It's very important. Also, it's gives us a good provision, good posture to also make a good, successful case study for other just about maybe global energy powers, like maybe even China, United States, to also copy-paste and develop and promote it even just about to Southeast Asia or Pacific Rim, etc. So I do hope that this project has just will be several strategic goals. First of all, geoeconomic goals, to make connections about 2 sea basins, Caspian and Black Sea. Second, to also increase about environmental security in age of the Black Sea Basin and the whole European Union area. And third, also just promote just energy security, independence, and energy diversification of involved actors, mainly European Union, just about organization, mainly.
Vakhtang Moisaev, thank you very much for your valuable insights and for joining us. We truly appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.